Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're brought to you by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll be here for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports topics. Wade, happy hump day.
Happy hump day to you, Mo. Good to be with you. Good to be with everybody. The sun is out and shining. Things are doing all right here in mid-January.
It really is. We've survived that first snow, and as we discussed with Chip yesterday, the news has kind of filtered out, as we mentioned. A little stunned, a little disappointed, still kind of dealing with the fact that Bree Smith is no longer with News Channel 5. She'd been here for 9 years, and it feels like a lot longer, man. She became a fixture here in a short period of time, and I'm just stunned and disappointed at that. But we're going to try to soldier through it. But, man, Bree, you'll be missed.
Absolutely. Meteorologists kind of like in the same vein as barbers, and significant others. Once you find one you like, you usually that's your ride or die. So there are some folks that are definitely scratching their heads and maybe hurting about that news right there.
Absolutely, man. It's tough, but we're gonna try to battle through it. Hey, great show today. In the second hour, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst Heather Williams of WCYB out of Johnson City. Get caught up on the off season, and man, I guess it's kind of right around the corner at this point, huh?
Yeah, it will not be long. Whether it's NASCAR or F1, those guys feels like their off season, golf and racing. It feels like their off season is
there is
short.
None. Yeah.
First NASCAR race. What is this? February 2nd. There's a race. Oof. Daytona 500 is in mid-February. So, yeah, it is fast approaching.
Less than a month. In the next segment, we will be joined by Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media, talking a little local men's hoops. And it's interesting. I saw an article on Twitter this morning coming out of the Ole Miss Alabama game from last night that I am really excited to talk to Joe about. Malik Dia with a big-time double-double for Ole Miss in that win over at Tuscaloosa last night. The former Ensworth standout, former Vanderbilt signee, former Belmont forward, now at his third school in 3 years, and seems to be a fit if last night is any indication. But, yeah, we'll talk more with Joe about that in the next segment, as well as, our two local SEC entrants and other local hoops. So, be sure and stick around for that. We'll be talking a little NFL as well as the Titans GM search continues. We'll get into a little NBA. We've got some NHL news to talk about as well. And again, it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. We will wrap up the show with the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. So be sure and stick around for that as well. Big show. A lot of great stuff. Wade, what do you think? Should we get going?
Let's do this thing, partner.
Let's do it. Let's get it started with yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
To the rundown we go. Let's start with high school basketball action. Let's go to the girls' scoreboard from last night. We opened things up with McGavock, who was victorious 49-19 over Antioch. Lewis County 45, Battle Creek 24. It was Beach down in Pearl Cone 60-52. Brentwood Academy slipping by Pope John Paul II 57-46. Ravenwood 52, Centennial 24. Dixon County with an 11-point win, 41-30 versus Clarksville Northwest. Lincoln County, the Lady Falcons with a nice win at Columbia 72-32 in that showdown last night. Columbia Academy holding down the fort for Murray County with a 52-43 win versus BGA. It was Cornersville 49, Santa Fe 32. DCA picks up a 50-31 win versus Nashville Christian. Davidson Academy on top of Friendship Christian 48-30. It was Richland 68, Eagleville 31. East Hickman a winner 49-34 versus Houston County. Good Pasture 63, Ezel Harding 50. Father Ryan with a 45-40 win versus Innsworth. Summertown blowing out Fayetteville 83-47. Page doing the same to Franklin 74-50 in that showdown. It was Mount Juliet 51, Gallatin 43. Culleoka slipping by Hampshire 40-28. Lipscomb Academy 54, Harpeth Hall 48. Green Hill 42-26 to the good versus Hendersonville. Cane Ridge picking up a 62-58 win versus John Overton.
Also, Kenwood with a 60-41 win over West Creek. Lawrence County 60, Giles County 40. Macon County with a 61-37 win over Greenbrier. It was Middle Tennessee Christian 41, Grace Christian of Franklin 25. Stewart County 54, Montgomery Central 15, Loretto 68, Mount Pleasant 9. That do not adjust your sets. That is accurate. Franklin County 65, Murfreesboro Central 46, Rockvale with a 56-47 win over Oakland. Portland defeated Station Camp 51-30. Riverdale defeated Siegel 51-30. Rossview 54, Creekwood 35. Cookville down Smyrna 56-31. Warren County with a 40-36 win over Spring Hill. Clarksville defeated Springfield 46-25. Lebanon 68, Stewart's Creek 45, Nolansville with a 50-43 win over Summit. It was Liberty Creek 42, Sycamore 26, Franklin Road Academy 64, University School of Nashville 27, Watertown edges Smith County 39-37, Providence Christian with a 54-36 win over Webb. Big win there for PCA. Wilson Central 40, Laverne 37, and finally it was Zion Christian 55, Dixon Academy 20.
Let's shift gears. Let's go to the boys scoreboard from last night. Now, Lewis County downing Battle Creek 73-40. Beach on top of Pearl Cone 59-39. Brentwood picks up a 67-54 win versus Independence. Pope John Paul II 67, Brentwood Academy 53. It was Centennial slipping by Ravenwood 56-52. Dixon County with the 64-52 win versus Clarksville Northwest. Lincoln County with a 79-74 win last night versus Columbia. Mo, you were at that game, were you not?
I was at that game. That was in overtime, and pretty good ball game there. We've got coverage at mainstreetmurray.com.
Good win for Lincoln County, NOT it sounds like. Other games, BGA 59, Columbia Academy 52. Santa Fe was a 75-38 winner versus Cornersville. Friendship Christian downing Davidson Academy 88-30. Eagleville bops Richland at home 59-45. Good win for the Eagles there. East Hickman was a 45-43 winner versus Houston County. Good Pasture picks up a 78-61 win versus Ezel Harding. Innsworth 72, Father Ryan 66. Summertown was a 93-47 winner versus Fayetteville. Page downing Franklin 77-49. It was Gallatin 69, Mount Juliet 38, Culleoka 76, Hampshire 43, Hendersonville 41, Green Hill 34. Hillsboro was a 68-26 winner versus Hunters Lane. Other scores here for the boys. White House picking up a 1-point victory, slim one versus Joe Burns, but it was 54-53. Cane Ridge 60, John Overton 47, Kip Nashville 50, Stratford 44, Kirkwood 66, Clarksville Northeast 19. Giles County survives. A basket waved off at the buzzer as they win over in Lawrenceburg last night 59-58. Good win for GCHS in district play. MBA picks up a 61-48 win versus Lipscomb Academy, and Macon County all over Greenbrier last night 51-31.
Also, Hume Fogg with a 50-47 win over Martin Luther King. Merrill Hyde defeated STEM Academy 54-16. Montgomery Central 52, Stewart County 40. Loretto all over Mount Pleasant 81-31. Franklin County, Loretto staying undefeated at 18-0 with that win, by the way. Franklin County with a 65-57 win over Murfreesboro Central. Rockvale defeated Oakland 83-59. Station Camp with a 63-44 win over Portland. It was Riverdale 54, Siegel 53. Creekwood with a 50-42 win against Rossview. Cookville edges Smyrna 60-57. Warren County down Spring Hill 56-29. Springfield with a 64-58 win over Clarksville. Stewart's Creek 58, Lebanon 52. Summit with a 54-47 win over Nolansville. It was Liberty Creek 60, Sycamore 51, and that was Wolves coach Seth Massey's 400th career victory. A lot of those at Station Camp, but most recently, obviously, at Liberty Creek. Congratulations to Coach Massey. Their coverage of that one on MainStreetPreps.com. University School of Nashville with a 98-47 win over Franklin Road Academy. It was Lawson 70, Valor Collegiate 35, Smith County 58, Watertown 28, Providence Christian 61, Webb School 53. White House Heritage with a 58-38 win over East Robertson. Whites Creek defeats East Nashville 36-34. Laverne 49, Wilson Central 37, and Zion Christian 104, Dixon Academy 84. In men's basketball action yesterday, it was Belmont with a 71-64 win over Valparaiso. And on the ice, the Preds pick up a 5-3 win at Bridgestone Arena over the Vegas Golden Knights. More on that one here in a bit.
That brings us to our schedule tonight. Small slate, but we got a couple good ones on the docket. Let's kick things off with high school action. Murfreesboro Central Magnet got swept last night versus Franklin County. They're on the road tonight at Community. Doubleheaders all beginning at 6 p.m. Lead Academy at Hume Fogg. Pope John Paul II will be at CPA. KIPP Nashville is traveling to Fairview. Girls standalone showdown tonight. Franklin Road Academy is traveling to St. Cecilia Academy. That game gets underway at 6. At 5 o'clock tonight in men's college basketball, South Carolina will make the trip to Music City to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. That game can be seen on SEC Network. Immediately following at 7, you can see Georgia and Tennessee, again a 7 o'clock tip, and again on SEC Network. And capping our Wednesday schedule, the Grizzlies will be at the Spurs tonight. Should be a fun one at 7 o'clock. You can catch that game on FanDuel Sports South. And that concludes the Wednesday schedule. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes today's rundown.
Top story brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And as we mentioned, the Nashville Predators, it's always newsworthy when they win these days, and they did so last night, 5-3 at home over the Vegas Golden Knights. But this one is particularly newsworthy, not just because it's their 14th of the season, but also because it's the 1,000th regular season win in the franchise's history. Steven Stamkos with a pair of goals. Forsberg, Barron, and O'Reilly each found the back of the net as well. Again, Nashville 5, Vegas 3. Again,
good win.
All wins are big.
Yeah, got to be celebrated, right?
Absolutely. Marchessault gets an assist in his first matchup with his former team as well. So, Stamkos, an offseason acquisition. Marchessault, an offseason acquisition. Both those guys showing up big in a big win last night. And, you know, the Preds need to see a lot more of that. But I thought Stamkos got shaken up in the game over the weekend. And so to see him back out on the ice, I guess, is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, good win for Nashville, and a nice little milestone, like you said. And Vegas has been playing some pretty good hockey. We hear so much. It kind of died down after a year or two once the novelty wore off. But everybody talked about the Vegas flu that everybody caught. When they went out and played, and the Golden Knights had this just insane home records. Wonder if the boys from Vegas were out on Broadway a little bit the night before. Maybe catch a little, Nashville flu, if you catch my drift. So that is a great win for the Preds. I mean, the age-old question is now, can they kind of stack some wins, whether consecutively or, intermittently, kind of making a little run here as we turn the corner past the halfway mark?
You would certainly like to see that. Again, 1,000 career wins or 1,000 franchise wins, the 27th NHL franchise to reach that mark. And on the bench during that 1,000th win was the guy who scored the first goal in the first win in Preds history, Andrew Brunette. So it had to be pretty big for him as well, to be a part of that history and this history. So Preds jumped on Vegas early, 2-0 at the end of the first, 4-2 after 2, and each of them scored in the third period for the 2-goal victory. So again, like you said, Wade, it'd be nice for this to be the start of maybe stacking some, but you can't stack any until you get one. So
yeah, good win for the boys. Nashville's won, I'm seeing this online, won 3 in a row versus Vegas now. So kind of, playing a little inspired hockey. Did not look good versus Washington on Saturday. So the fact that they laid an egg Saturday night, but then turn around and pick up a big win, on one hand, we shouldn't be surprised. But on the other hand, it's kind of nice to get a good one versus a quality team there.
And they put themselves in a pretty good position because they got the Blackhawks coming in tomorrow night. So as you talk about stacking wins, maybe there's an opportunity there, because as bad as Nashville has been, Chicago has not been very good either. So
no, could do wonders for your confidence heading into that one. And that's the one, obviously, you thought, all right, we could definitely get this one. And kind of put it into perspective, Vegas is second in the West in terms of points, trailing just Winnipeg, who we've mentioned a time or two. Nashville has had, some success against. So this will be kind of, it feels like this is going to be the same script that we've seen thus far all year long. You're going to be kind of surprised and say, wow, man, that was a nice win versus a really good team, like a Winnipeg or a Vegas. And then you'll lose to the Kraken, and you're saying, oh, that's a pretty bad loss. I don't know what's up with this team, but they're still young, and still, despite the fact they brought in the big names in the offseason, which kind of accelerated expectations for the fan base, I think they were still kind of in a little bit of a rebuild mode. Maybe they can turn it on in the second half of the season and at least give us some meaningful games down the stretch.
Would be nice. With this win last night, they have split their first 2 games of this 5-game homestand. Again, they've got Chicago coming in tomorrow night, Minnesota on Saturday, and San Jose on Tuesday before they go back out on the road. Oddly enough, to San Jose a week from tomorrow night. That's interesting scheduling. I guess they're going to share a flight. We'll see how that goes. But again, the Preds, 1,000 franchise victories following that 5-3 win over Vegas last night at Bridgestone Arena. And it's got to be great to be able to do that at home. I mean, certainly the way the season has gone, you'd like to have won 14 games a bit sooner than now. But at least, again, it was something you were able to celebrate in front of the home folks.
Yeah, selfishly, obviously, I'm a little disappointed. They didn't. It was kind of like a no-hitter, I guess, because that was not mentioned anywhere in the building on Saturday. Would have been cool to be there for that. You may be wondering, 1,000 wins, 770 losses all time, 60 ties, I believe, going back to the earlier days of the franchise. Ties or tiebreaker wins. I forget the exact order because I'm not used to seeing 4 numbers here, but 1,000 wins and only 770 losses. I mean, that kind of speaks to the fact that this franchise has had a pretty fair amount of success for a team that was late to the scene in terms of NHL.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we will be joined by Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media, talking a little local hoops. Stick around. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Before we bring in Joe Sullivan to talk a little local hoops, I want to mention Wade with the Nugget. The Predators are the second fastest NHL franchise to reach 1,000 wins. Only the Philadelphia Flyers got there quicker, winning their 1,000th in their 2018th game. So, nice work by the Preds. Could have gotten there quicker, but at least they got there. So, again, congratulations to them. Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media joining us here now on Main Street Sports Today, as he does pretty much every Wednesday, talking little local hoops. And Joe, before we get into local hoops, let's venture south ever so slightly for a quick alumni report. Former Belmont standout Malik Dia, 23 points, 19 boards as the Rebels went on the road in SEC play and knocked off number 4 Alabama 74-64. You know, we talked when Dia went into the portal last year after his sophomore season at Belmont, and as he came out at Ole Miss and wondered what that would look like. Well, he's averaging a double-double in SEC play.
So I wrote about in December. I called it Tales from the Transfer Portal, and I tried to bring everyone up to date on the transfers out of the Nashville schools. And at that point, the only one who was really doing well was Jacoby Gillespie, who transferred from Belmont to Maryland, and he continues to do very well. And Malik was kind of mediocre. That has changed since SEC play has begun. And the other night he had. What was it, 23 and 19?
23 and 19 last night. Yep.
Last night. And Mississippi wins at Alabama. And for Mississippi to beat to win at Alabama, they would have. I think they need something like Malik Dia's performance delivered. And we've talked about him a lot on this show, about his talent, and sometimes we saw it delivered, but the consistency was the problem. So it seems like, let's see if it continues, I guess we'd have to say. But I think there's no denying that this is someone with, we could say, all conference, possible NBA talent, without a doubt, I think. Yeah. But to achieve that means he has to reach a certain level of consistency that has eluded him in his college career so far. Even at Belmont, he wasn't an all-Valley player, first team, though he did have his moments when he looked like one. So let's hope he keeps it going. He's an interesting kid and a very nice kid, and I'm really happy for him.
Another point regarding consistency. 7.1 points, 5.4 boards in Ole Miss's pre-conference schedule. 17.5 points, 10.3 boards in SEC play. So it's kind of tough to figure. Maybe Chris Beard just found the right button to push. I don't know, but his 19 rebounds last night were 19 out of 37 total for Ole Miss. And again, the Rebels with that win, their first road win over a top 5 team, they improved to 15-2, and they are one of, I think, 2 undefeated teams now in SEC play. So
and one of 36 SEC teams in the Joe Lunardi NCAA bracketology. It is so just Dia. I mean, for people, if there are people out there who haven't seen him play, he's very gifted in terms of, for his size, 6'9", he can handle the ball, he can shoot from outside, way outside. And there are some times when he sort of fell in love with that. He liked the idea about being out on the arc rather than inside where the rebounds are, is the point of it. And it seems like he was in the paint this time, fighting for rebounds. And again, I hope he goes on to continue to do this.
Absolutely.
And one other thing on him to remember too is, while he was in the process of transferring, he also was declaring for the draft. Seems like a good move now, withdrawing from the draft, especially getting that extra dose of SEC seasoning, and efforts like last night gotta probably help the prospects like you guys were talking about a moment ago.
Anything you talk about in terms of the NBA with him and many others, it's a potential factor. Mm-hmm. It is, and I got to tell you, I don't consider myself skilled at being able to identify who is going to be a great NBA player coming out of the college ranks. I must get distracted by how good they are in college and what translates. Because, I mean, we have the kid from Belmont playing for the Pacers in the rotation, and I'm not sure I would have predicted it. I knew he was a terrific player for Belmont, but Mo, help me. Why my memory deceiving me?
Shepherd.
Ben Shepherd.
Ben Shepherd. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's in the rotation for the Pacers and a first-round pick coming out of Belmont, and it's. I think people would, on potential, they would say Dia had a higher ceiling than Ben Shepherd, but Ben Shepherd had consistency and great work ethic, et cetera, and that's why he is where he is.
I will tell you, Joe, that when Derek Byers didn't make it big in the NBA coming out of Vanderbilt, then I just kind of threw up my hands. Like you said, I don't know what it is they're looking for, but they clearly do, but I have no clue. And so I just let them do what they do, man.
Sometimes it's a specific skill they really like and they see on a high level, and they sort of the rest of it doesn't matter. In some way, if you have the specific skill they think is at a high enough level, he's a great shooter, but he can't handle the ball. But they'll just stick him in a corner and wait for the ball to come to him or something like that.
Go. Yep. Yeah. I watched some of Vanderbilt and Missouri over the weekend, Joe, and I watched Vanderbilt get it down to 61-60 up at Como, and then they had a couple of turnovers there at key moments there inside the 5-minute mark. Missouri goes down and scores off of each of them and stretches it out to an eventual 75-66 victory, I think it was. I mean, I don't know that it's I don't know what it's related to that Vanderbilt tough times closing out games in SEC play, but they're having the struggles that even with the non-conference schedule that they had, a lot of folks kind of foreshadowed, I guess.
Yeah, look, that was a winnable game. A few weeks ago when the three of us went through toss-ups and losses and possible wins for Vanderbilt in the SEC, we were trying to get them to 500, if you recall. And at Missouri was a toss-up. And it was there. They were within a point. But as you said, they couldn't close it out. But then Missouri turns around and wins at Florida last night.
Right.
So the SEC is going to be there's going to be weird things. Mississippi winning at Alabama and Missouri winning at Florida last night, I think, is two illustrations of what 9 in and 9 out is going to be produced in the SEC. They're going to be beating each other up a lot. And poor Vanderbilt, so they play South Carolina, I'll say this afternoon. It's a 5:00 tip at Memorial today. There's a triple header on the SEC network, and they lead it off. So South Carolina, this is the home W. When we went through it, this is the one that they have to win this game. And again, South Carolina playing at home played Auburn to a 3-point game on Saturday and had the lead, had their chances at home against the best team in the league. We could I guess we can say that right now. Mm-hmm. And so I think this will again be a challenge for Vanderbilt. And then if you look at the schedule, after South Carolina, Tennessee comes to Memorial on Saturday. Then it's at Alabama. Kentucky comes to Memorial. At Oklahoma. At Florida. Texas. Auburn. At Tennessee. At Kentucky. Where are the wins?
That's a heck of a question. It could get ugly quick if you're not careful on West End. So it's definitely a tough part of the schedule that they're getting into. Like you mentioned, Tennessee coming to town on Saturday. Before that, the Vols have Georgia coming to their place tonight as they look for their second straight win.
And Georgia could beat them, without a doubt. And Tennessee, look, they finally got beat last week, and we discussed that. I really thought it was an aberration. They came back and won after that. Mm-hmm. And Mo, can we discuss the Rick Barnes quote, or has that been overdone?
I don't think it's been overdone. Love to get your insight on that. We have talked about it, but I don't think you can talk about it too much actually in this day and time. So
do you want to repeat it for the audience, or shall I?
Shoot your shot. Chaz Lanier getting pulled from the game in the second half, early in the second half, out at Texas after not pulling the trigger on a shot on a play that had been drawn up for him. And Barnes explained it in the post game. If that's what he's paid to do, is shoot those shots. And if he's not going to shoot them, then he can come sit with me. And I think Ben McKee with Go Vols 24/7 was on with us Monday, and he said he didn't feel like that comment drew as much heat or whatever else as he would have anticipated. And I just feel like it's kind of a reflection of where we are in college athletics right now. I mean, he's absolutely right. Chaz Lanier is paid to take shots, and if he's passing up shots, then you're doing me no good.
But if we start talking about getting paid and he's not doing his job, what happens next?
Does he get fired?
Pay cut?
Yeah,
a pay cut? It's that's what
Doc's pay for that game.
Yeah.
No game check.
It just opens up so many other possibilities that it's downright scary. Now, most people think that Rick was sort of semi-joking. Mm-hmm. He wanted to make a point that he wants Lanier to shoot. That's the serious part. but he just used the expression "getting paid" as sort of he meant it in more jocular way than serious.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't think Rick is looking to dock Chaz Lanier's pay or anything like that. But I do think, like you said, he kind of wanted to get a point across. You're a shooter, shoot. So
but it's this is the era we're in.
mhm. It absolutely is, and you have to wonder about that at some point. If somebody is underperforming or does underperform, is that a byproduct of where we are? If we're paying you this to do this and you're not doing it to this level, then how do we get through to you? So
So we don't know this for a fact, but it is believed
mhm.
that the two highest single paid players out of NIL transfers are Hawkins at Kansas State. He went from Illinois to Kansas State, and Ballo, big kid, went from Arizona to Indiana. Supposedly getting $2 million a year himself alone, and Kansas State and Indiana could stack up right now as two of the most disappointing teams in the country, neither of which are on target to make the NCAA tournament. And I actually saw a little video of Ballo playing against as Indiana was getting blown out the other night by Iowa, standing around, not hustling. So I think if you have to think that if you're going to start paying these players that much money and they don't deliver in that manner, that there would be there could be consequences for that.
Yep.
So,
Consequences and repercussions. I know things are starting to get a little warm for Mike Woodson up at Indiana. Friend of the show, Rick Bozich, had an article here in the last couple of days, I think, and some Indiana outlets as well are starting to kind of turn on the former Hoosier player turned coach. So
Yeah, they were chanting "Fire Woodson" in the crowd the other night, and it is heating up. It's looking grim.
yeah,
it is.
Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media talking local hoops. Let's bring it back a little locally. Middle on a little bit of a roll, Joe.
So last week we talked about Justin Porter. He went scoreless in a loss to Liberty, and you talk about reacting the correct way. He comes back to have his two biggest points totals of the year, and he had 27 against Kennesaw and then 29 against Jacksonville State, and they win both games on the homestand. Great to see. Hey, now they're firmly in second place in the Conference USA. They're 12-5 overall, 3-1. And next, Mo, I know is one of your favorite games of the year. This Saturday at the Murphy Center, Western Kentucky comes, and look, they're home. They're ahead of Western Kentucky in the stands. They should in the standings. They should win this game.
I hope you're right, Joe, but strange things happen when MTSU and Western Kentucky get together. So, like I said, I just hope you're right. What's the latest on Lipscomb, Belmont, and TSU?
So I've been saying this about Lipscomb, that in the Lenny Acuff era, the worst game his teams have played would be the second half against Queens when they blew a 13-point lead to lose, and they followed that up with their first half against West Georgia, a former Division II team that came into the first year playing Division I, the 3-13, the worst team in the Atlantic Sun, took a 15-point lead on Lipscomb in the first half the other night on Saturday. Lipscomb turns it around, 34-point swing, and ends up winning pretty easily. But those two 20-minute periods, there is something not right with Lipscomb. We see, it's look, Lenny's a guy who could figure it out, but all the optimism we had for them, I see these. It's something that just is not clicking correctly for them, and I think we can look at one situation that I think Jacob Ignatovich, their 6'9" center, all league player. he took 9 shots in the last 2 games each, 9 each. You know, he needs to have 15 or more shots per game, I think, and that would be a good starting point. More opportunities him for offensively, and obviously they have to guard better. Queens hit something like 9-10 shots in a row in the second half when they came back to win that game, and you just can't let something like that happen. It's similar to what Belmont did to them too. Belmont hit a bunch of shots in a row to come back and beat them after they were leading. They were up on Belmont, I believe, if I'm remembering it right, like 11 with 4 minutes to go, and lost that game. And in many ways, I think they've never recovered from that loss.
Let me ask you this, Joe, because I think you were speaking either last week or the week before about the emergence of Dylan Faulkner. Has he cut into Ognacevich's shots?
Oh, that could be, yes, like a little bit. But they really should be able to work together high-low. But after he had that really good game, he hasn't repeated it. And as we talked about with Malik Dia, the consistency they're seeking in the second half against West Georgia, as they rallied to win that game, he did not play. He sat the whole second half.
Okay.
I don't think there was an injury. It was on the telecast. It was speculated that he might have been hurt. I haven't been able to confirm that. So, I mean, it says a lot that he sat for those full 20 minutes, and that they were losing badly, and then they went on to win fairly easily. They have a trip to Bellarmine on Thursday, and then they're home against Austin Peay on Saturday. So I guess we'll see how much Dylan Faulkner plays. But there's
fascinating.
Look,
hey, Joe, it's been fascinating with them because I remember they had those 2 losses, maybe 3 earlier in the year, and you were kind of a little down on Lipscomb, and then just poof, 2 weeks later, not just you, but everybody, it felt like, they're popping up on the projections to win. And then now all of a sudden it's like we're just riding this roller coaster a little bit with this team right now.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. What you just said, I couldn't argue with you because look, their metrics went up. The net rating loved them.
Yeah.
It was in the 70s. They were like 100 positions ahead of the next team in the Atlantic Sun, and they just haven't backed it up in these last 2 games. So it is. I did that net rating. Some people were thinking it was incredible for an Atlantic Sun team, but actually the Lipscomb team coached by Casey Alexander that went to the NIT finals had a higher net rating than this year's Lipscomb team. So that probably is the highest one the Atlantic Sun has seen in its history.
Speaking of Casey Alexander, the Bruins with a win over Valpo last night. What are you seeing out of them to this point?
So that they had a second half. They did blow a 16-point lead and fell behind, but then grasped the game back and won it at the end, mostly with free throws and also some gritty defense, which not a trademark of theirs. So it's good to see Casey was happy with the defense. But some of their shooting numbers in the second half, they were 7 for 30 in the second half, and 1 for 14 from 3. Where they win the game is they go 16 for 19 from the free throw line. And we'll say this: Valparaiso is not they were the worst team in the Valley for a few years. That's not true anymore. Roger Powell is the coach there. He's a former Gonzaga assistant. And he also coached at Valpo before that with Bryce Drew. Was he at Vanderbilt with Bryce Drew? He might have been with Vanderbilt.
I believe he was.
That would make sense that he was at Vanderbilt with Bryce Drew. He's turning things around there. They're a competitive team in the Valley, without a doubt. So that's a nice win, but for Belmont, I think, because they didn't win it in the way they normally win games. So that's a good sign. They can win games in more than one way.
We talked about TSU getting that win, not this past weekend, but the weekend before against Little Rock. Have you seen anything that they've done to build on that one?
It's like win one, lose one with them. Play terrible, play great. They're just very hard to pin down what kind of team they are. I did notice I was sort of looking at the standings, because they have 4 losses in the league. And when I talked to Penny one time, he felt like the regular season champion, the OVC, will have 4 or 5 losses, if not 6. So right now, Morehead State is on top with only 1 loss. So I guess we can't eliminate them if they finally started playing well all the time. But I'm not sure they're capable of it. What's a good sign was Justice Jackson, who really is their only point guard. And he's been slowed by an ankle injury. He came back and played 27 minutes the other night, Saturday, when they won. So that was a good sign. Hopefully he'll be able to play more this week. They're home this week. They got SIU, Edwardsville, and Eastern Illinois. Eastern Illinois is at the bottom of the standings. So I guess there is an opportunity there for Tennessee State to do something this weekend.
Yeah, when I hear you say the league champ might have 4 or 5 losses, I look at TSU's record and I'm thinking, well, they kind of got to run the table already at this
yes,
point.
I think that's true, yeah.
But you're right. The schedule seems like it is a little more conducive. And it always feels like TSU is prime, if nothing else, for an upset or two in the OVC tournament, just to kind of throw things out of whack a little bit.
Yeah, no one is untouchable in the OVC. So, I mean, it will come down to those 3 days in March in Evansville. And if by that time Penny has this group playing well, I don't think you can eliminate them because I think the league is just no one's a standout is how I would phrase it.
There we go.
Well, it's like the opposite of the SEC where, like, everyone's a standout. So it would be hard to pick. In the OVC, it's like, oh, my God, I don't think anyone really – stands out as someone who's going to like dominate that tournament.
Yeah. Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little local hoops. Joe, we appreciate it as always and look forward to catching up with you next week.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure being on.
Hey, real quick. I got to give Joe, we went this whole segment and he's a big soccer guy, as everybody remembers from last week.
I'm not. No,
I busted out my custom top from my Everton boys.
Oh my God! I didn't notice it.
They're losing as we speak, Joe. So I've been enthralled with them losing while I'm watching right now. So we went the whole segment. You didn't even mention your soccer fandom.
I apologize, but look, I love the initials on your jacket. That is so cool.
This is straight from across the pond, man. So and then I got it, and it was a little too snug. I forget they wear their clothes a little tighter over there in Europe. So
I yes, always go a size up.
Yeah.
It is
2 sizes up in this case.
I am not a big. I like soccer, but to classify me in like as equal to you in terms of fandom would be incorrect.
I feel like you're shortchanging yourself, Joe. We're going to make a big fan out of you yet by the end of this
but I am
segment
intrigued
this
by
year.
it. As I was sort of doing some work preparing for this show and to the games I'm going to watch this week and write about, I did have on my TV the FA Cup and Leyton Orient versus Derby. I was watching that yesterday. I'm intrigued by these teams that are off the beaten path. It's as opposed to watching Chelsea and Arsenal or something like that.
Final comment on that real quick. I know we're short on time, but FA Cup is cool because anybody in the entire nation can participate. So you can have a beer league team out there that somehow has to go to Manchester United. So they never. The upsets are never that big, but you could, in theory, have 11 kids from Nashville playing Miami FC for the championship if it were to come to that. So FA Cup is fun.
It is.
Talking a little basketball, talking a little soccer with Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media here on Main Street Sports today. Again, Joe, we appreciate it. I did not know what that was Wade was wearing, but I'm
it's
glad
a great
to have
jacket.
It really is.
I'm
glad to have an explanation for it. We'll see what he's got on for you next week.
I should wear my Millwall T-shirt when I come on next week.
Now you're talking Green Street Hooligans. That's a great movie. You mentioned Millwall. That's a great movie with Elijah Wood from back in the day.
I'm going to check that out.
I know you will, Joe.
Hey, man, we'll catch up.
See ya.
When we come back here on Main Street Sports today, let's talk a little NFL. Stay tuned.
never heard now. Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. In the final segment of the show, Wade and I will bring you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. Right now, let's check in on the Titans as they start their second round of interviews for Rand Carthon's successor as the team's general manager. After doing some virtual interviews to kind of whittle things down, Ed Dodds, who is the Colts assistant general manager, and Terrence Gray, who is the Bills director of player personnel, both interviewed yesterday in person. Both Dodds and Gray had their initial interviews on Saturday. So pretty quick turn for both those guys in that initial wave that they interviewed from Friday to Monday. So again, Ed Dodds and Terrence Gray interviewed yesterday. Dodds has been with the Colts for the past 8 seasons, the last 7 as assistant GM. Gray has been with Buffalo for 8 seasons and is just finishing up his 3rd year as director of player personnel. I thought I had seen somewhere the other folks that they had gotten down to, but I've not been able to find that quickly or easily. But again, they have begun with the in-person portion of this process. So feels like they're moving fairly quickly, Wade.
It feels like it, and it seems like, despite the fact that across the league, everybody was kind of chuckling and dumpster fire was tossed around, but it seems like they're attracting a relatively impressive group of candidates. I'm not, I can't lie. I'm not super familiar with the day-to-day with a lot of these folks that they're bringing in, but do like the fact that a couple of the guys, especially Cunningham from Chicago, was in the mix the last time when Rand. It almost feels like if you can get him on board with being the bridesmaid the first go around, if you can convince him to be the bride this time, if it's a guy worthy of bringing back in for an interview again, that seems kind of impressive. But I mean, we are talking about an exec from Chicago, which make your own jokes or assumptions there. And the same kind of goes with the Colts, right? I mean,
right.
Ed Dodds, could come to Nashville and do a great thing, but it's to the casual fan, it'd be kind of tough to get excited about bringing somebody in from the Colts, especially with all their turmoil, and we've talked about with Ballard there. So Feels like they're doing their due diligence, and yes, to your point, it feels like they're moving sort of quickly on this thing. Presumably, you want to get in place to get ready for the combine, and then obviously the draft coming up right around the corner.
Yeah. Apparently, Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi interviewed earlier today. His second interview. You mentioned Ian Cunningham, the Bears assistant GM, which does not sound like a great selling point, but hey, who knows? John Eric Sullivan, who was the last person, I believe, to interview initially, is in the final six. He is currently the vice president of player personnel for the Packers. And John, I had seen Spytech. I'm now seeing Skytech, and I'm not sure which it is, but he is assistant general manager for the Bucks, is in the final six, apparently. So again, they seem to be moving pretty quickly and may have this thing knocked out pretty quickly.
One other thing too on Cunningham, I'm reading. I'm deep on Bears blogs right now, just checking this out. But they kind of attributed Cunningham with talking to Ryan Poles, the general manager. He apparently wanted to trade up in the draft and draft somebody who they ended up picking Rome Odunze with. And supposedly Cunningham was the guy that said, no, trust me, he'll still be there right where we can pick at number 9 last year. So that seems to be kind of a positive or selling point, navigating the draft waters. And then this is kind of cool if you're Chicago, obviously. Whoever hires him, if someone does this go around, as a result of the NFL kind of trying to develop minority coaches and execs, the Bears get a 3rd-round compensatory pick if Cunningham signs with somebody, I'm reading. So if you're the Bears, you may perhaps hate to lose him, but an extra pick never hurts.
Never hurts. Everybody's looking for draft capital, so the Bears may be singing Mr. Cunningham's praises and kind of pushing him out there a little bit. So yeah, we're moving along. I guess if Borgonzi interviewed today, then that's half of the 6 finalists there. So, we might be seeing some white smoke. Today is Wednesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of the week, maybe. I mean, might be a little optimistic, but we'll certainly try to keep our fingers on the pulse of this thing and see how it goes. Again, the Titans are on the clock with the number 1 pick in the draft, and that'll be big with whoever this person is, and with Chad Brinker, who I don't know what his title is, but he is the head honcho, it seems, in the front office. So we'll see. Yesterday we talked a little bit about Dion to Dallas. Jason Witten, whose coaching chops have come at the Texas high school level, has also been thrown around as a potential successor to Mike McCarthy. In fact, apparently he was mentioned in the negotiations between Jerry Jones and Mike McCarthy for him to continue in his role as the heir apparent. And it sounds as if that's when McCarthy threw up his hands and said, you know what, I'm good. So, but from Texas high school coach at a private school in Texas to coach of the Cowboys, I mean, I thought Dion was a little bit of a stretch, but and I know that Jason had a fantastic career there, but he's won a state championship at the private school that he is at in the Dallas area. Witten has, but that's a bit ambitious.
Feels like another trial balloon from the PR folks down in Dallas. Kind of just warm everybody up just a little bit. Yeah, we're warming up to Dion. Yeah, we're warming up to Witten. And then you go out and you probably grab somebody that maybe they're not necessarily too keen on, and you can come back and say, well, we tried, we tried to woo Dion, or we tried to woo our franchise's best tight end ever. So, I mean, kind of feels like a little bit of a trial balloon. Kellen Moore still feels like he's going to be in the mix, whether or not this thing fully comes down. Obviously some great times and some great memories there with him calling the shots on the offense in Dallas. So it kind of feels like the route. These other two names getting floated out kind of feel like borderline publicity stunts. Prime more less so than Witten. This one feels like it's really out of left field.
Yeah, to say the least. Moore, the offensive coordinator at Philadelphia, so Dallas is going to have to wait at least a little bit longer before they can talk to him. But he was Dak's backup his final year as a player. And then the next year became the Cowboys quarterbacks coach. So they have a little bit of a relationship, and that probably can't be understated or undersold in this process, considering the contract that Dak is currently on. So whoever is the coach, you feel like they're going to be tied to Prescott as their quarterback for a pretty good while. So continuing in the coaching carousel, guy you've got some familiarity with, Robert Saleh, apparently interviewed with Dallas as well.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on him. There was talks that he could go back to San Francisco. He's kind of been floated around as a perhaps a candidate to end up in Jacksonville. But one thing is for sure, as bad as Saleh was as the head coach at times, he dealt with a really bad quarterback situation for a number of years, and that's even before Rodgers got there. And then when they let him go in the middle of the season, the defense kind of fell apart. And the season was already crumbling, but then the defense really kind of crumbled without him calling the shots. He's kind of regarded as an elite defensive guy. Maybe still got some chops and some juice as a head coach, it sounds like. I feel like if he ended up like in Jacksonville, could be a good fit. Seems like him in Dallas, man, it's the same situation as New York, right? You kind of have an unserious franchise and the expectations are out of this world. Why bother almost? Or he ends up back in a coordinator role where he was very, very good.
Speaking of the Jets, and you as a Jet fan, what's your level of interest in Pittsburgh offensive coordinator, former Falcons head coach Arthur Smith?
Doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, but the Jets are kind of like the Bears in the sense it feels like they've interviewed everybody except me and you, it feels like, Mo, unless you have interviewed without telling me, because they've brought in, I think the Jets, I read this, I wish I could pull it up on the fly. I think the Jets have already contacted or interviewed, by their own admission, 16 or 17 coaches. The Bears, who are the ones who are kind of getting made fun of for bringing everybody in, they've interviewed less, like 15, I think. So I'm not real sure, but if it were to come down to Smith, man, it feels like, even as bad as the Jets are and as big of a joke as they are, that's not really the guy that I want them to go after.
It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really inspire you. So, but he has interviewed with both, or is expected to interview with both the Jets and the Bears, as you said. I guess they are both casting a wide net. So we'll see what comes out of that. Let's go ahead and take a break here, as we are past the halfway mark here on Wild and Wacky Wednesday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Let's come back and get into the grab bag. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence.
We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Let's get into the grab bag. Let's start in the association. A couple of days ago, we talked about Indiana stopping Cleveland's 12-game win streak. Well, apparently turnabout is fair play because Cleveland defeated the Pacers 127-117 last night. It was Indiana's first loss of 2025. They had won their first 6 games to start the new year. So big win there. Donovan Mitchell, who did not play, I don't believe, in that loss to Indiana, did play last night, scored 35. Darius Garland with 24, Evan Mobley with a double-double, 22 and 13. So I don't know how big a win it is for Cleveland, considering the heater that they've been on all year. But, again, it stopped Indiana's 6-game streak since the calendar has turned to January. So from that standpoint, tough loss for the Pacers.
Yeah, good win for Cleveland to kind of, get what little perhaps sour taste in your mouth was there out. And Indiana, had kind of been rolling. They lost last night, and then the Bucks won last night, so they get leapfrogged by a game there. So you mentioned it earlier with Spider back in the lineup. Obviously, that's a huge piece that cannot be overstated for Cleveland. Mobley plays fantastic. Obviously, we know what Garland can do, but they kind of need their full complement of guys. That's a good win for them. It's perhaps a disappointing loss at home, certainly versus the Pacers, but a good win for them on the road. And then tomorrow night, we get the rematch. It'll be them at OKC, which should be a fun showdown on TNT tomorrow night.
We talked a little bit to Joe a couple of segments back about SEC basketball last night. He kind of stole our thunder a little bit with, in addition to Ole Miss's road win over Alabama, Missouri shocks number 5 Florida. At least Ole Miss was ranked. Missouri unranked goes down to Gainesville, picks up a 83-82 win over Florida, which just stunned Tennessee a week ago. But it seems like the stunner of all stunners right now across the SEC may very well be the Razorbacks, who fell at Baton Rouge 78-74 last night and are now 0-4 in Southeastern Conference play.
Yeah, I saw a lot of chatter even before this game, but there were some rumblings and grumblings that I think that was exactly the headline. It was basically like 3 games into SEC play, and Arkansas already has a big problem on their hands, and the Calipari experiment. Not saying it's a disaster or a failure, but man, you certainly didn't think you'd come in. I know there were some limitations, and I know you did the best you could to get the roster ready for this year, but you certainly were not thinking 0-4, and especially not thinking going down to LSU and losing.
No, because LSU is, as we've talked about the Southeastern Conference this season, LSU is firmly entrenched in that lower half at best, and maybe not even in the top of the lower half. They improved to 12-5 with their first conference win, again 78-74 last night over Arkansas. Next up for the Razorbacks, they go to Missouri on Saturday. Then they are at home against Georgia and Oklahoma before going to Kentucky on February 1st. So schedule, well, I mean, it's the SEC as we have said, and everybody that we have talked to said. So it's, not, I don't really know what else we can say about it at this point. You're going to get some weird stuff and some outcomes that you might not necessarily expect, just because this conference is going to grind on you over the course of this season.
Absolutely. It feels like, as a Big Ten fan, it feels like Big Ten in the sense that you can't really take anybody lightly, and every night you're going to have to be at your best or you're going to catch an L. And as we saw last night, even in Florida's case, the team that mopped the floor with Tennessee just a week prior kind of catches a real bad loss at home. But that's kind of how it's going to have to be every single night. And to Arkansas's credit, or point, I guess, if you will, I mean, they had lost to Illinois earlier in the season, lost to Baylor earlier in the season. I know Baylor's come back down to earth a little bit. But then you're talking at Tennessee, Ole Miss, who we now think is pretty good, and then Florida. And so other than that loss to LSU last night, it's kind of quote-unquote expected in some regards. This will be just an absolute meat grinder of a season. All the teams are really good and impressive and capable of, doing some damage, at least winning a game or two in the NCAA tournament. But by the nature of the schedule, like I said, it's the league that eats its young, and they're not going to be able to all survive.
Yeah. I mean, somebody's got to lose every night out, and so far it's been Arkansas every night out. Did not expect to be talking Big 12 women's basketball necessarily on this show, but Iowa State went 0 for 7 from behind the arc last night in a 71-54 win over Texas Tech. 71-58 win over Texas Tech. That 0 for 7 marks the first time since February 19th, 1995, that the Cyclones have not hit a three-pointer. That's 945 games, which set an NCAA record.
Wild stat, and shout out to the sports information department. I know you didn't want to put that stat out there, but you knew the media would be wondering, and so credit for owning up and stepping up to it. And yeah, the things on this, I'm reading this article on ESPN about this story. The WNBA didn't exist. UConn had not won any national championships. I mean, this is crazy when you think about it. The gas was probably 40 cents a gallon. I mean, we could just go on and on with these parallels here. Crazy situation. And then at the very bottom, kind of cool, Chattanooga is now the new longest active streak. So get the threes, let the threes fly, Chattanooga, especially if you're down late. We need to keep that streak intact.
790 straight games with a three-pointer for the Mocs, who will take on visiting Samford tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So the Mocs are on the clock again. They have the longest 3-point streak in women's basketball at 790 after Iowa State's was snapped, like you said. And what's funny is their big post player, Audie Crooks, the super sophomore, apparently put up a three from the top of the key late in that game last night, and it rattled in and out. And with that, that was their final 3-point attempt late in that 13 win over Texas Tech. But they were, as veteran coach Bill Fandley said, we only shot 7 of them, so we didn't really care. We were more, if we were really focused, we would have probably run about 15 more plays to get one. But apparently they were more concerned against Tech about scoring inside. And, you know, at least it didn't end in a loss. They did get the win. So
good news is, yeah, it didn't end in a loss. You know, I would like to go back and watch the final few minutes of that game because they were playing at home also. Surely the crowd was aware of the situation at that point. But, yeah, when you only shoot 7, I mean, you have to give me like 27 before I might get hit one on some days. So a limited number, but you got the win. And I like that the coach, Finley, said that because, yeah, it's cool, and, yeah, you'd like to keep it going, but it also kind of, you know, gives you a little bit of, hey, we got bigger fish to fry, which is certainly for a program of that stature, that's good to hear, that their goals are set a little loftier than just keeping a streak alive.
Iowa State has made 151 threes this season. That's the third most in the Big 12. So a little bit of a shock that they, like you said, only took 7 and didn't make any. But because that has been a staple of their offense throughout Findley's tenure and in this season as well. But Iowa State moving to 13-6, 4-2 with that victory. But their next game with a 3-pointer will be their first. So we'll see how that goes. Staying on the women's basketball side for just a second, Pitt was down 46-14 to SMU over the weekend. Came back and won 72-59. That 32-point comeback is the largest, or ties the largest comeback in Division I women's basketball history. Texas State back in 2006 trailed Texas San Antonio 40-8 before winning 73-71 in overtime.
That is a wild comeback, and man, I thought Giles County was crazy. They were up like 18 late in the third quarter and blew a lead last night. I can't imagine you're up. What'd you say, 34, 35?
32, 56, 46, 14.
Man, and that is impressive. And then to be able to hopefully roll that in. I mean, once you get a win like that, it could do wonders for your team. You know, you're hopefully never in that situation again, but at least it's cool. You know, you are capable of pulling that off if things got desperate.
Hey, we came back from down 32. This is nothing. Yeah. That gets kind of crazy. The confidence level that pushes you to. Couple of things we need to get to here before we get to Heather Williams in the next segment. One, Tennessee cornerback Jermod McCoy, it is being reported by numerous outlets that he has torn an ACL during off-season workouts, has had surgery, and is expected to be back for the start of the 2025 campaign, but that's never great news. Obviously, he will miss spring practice for the Vols. Kid had a great 2024 and was starting to really garner some attention at the next level, so it's tough news there.
Yeah, was a great player in the secondary, tied for the SEC lead in interceptions this year. Hopefully he makes a safe and speedy recovery.
Absolutely. And the National Football Foundation has announced its 2025 College Football Hall of Fame class. Nick Saban was announced last week on game day. He will be joined by coaches Larry Blakeney, Larry Corver, and Urban Meyer. boatload of players were voted in, but among them, former Pearl Cone standout, former University of Tennessee standout, and Jacksonville Jaguar defensive tackle John Henderson. Ole Miss's Terrence Metcalf, West Virginia running back Steve Slayton, USC defensive back Dennis Thurman, and Norfolk State coach Michael Vick amongst the inductees in the College Football Hall of Fame induction class of 2025. Big honor for those guys and the numerous ones that we are unable to mention in the interest of time.
Yeah, great group there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports today. When we come back, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams, because as we mentioned, the season's right around the corner. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
While the Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, in our final segment, Wade and I will bring you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. Right now, we're going to get caught up on NASCAR with WCYB TV's Heather Williams. Heather, what's happening?
What's going on, gentlemen?
We're good. We're good. How are you?
Cold.
I hate that.
Yeah, I don't do winter well.
You're preaching to the choir here on that one. Yeah. So think warm thoughts. Think NASCAR. Bring us up to speed. What have we missed here over the last few weeks? What do we need to know as we are 3 weeks from activity?
Yeah. The week before the Super Bowl, will be the clash at Bowman Gray Stadium. So on February 2nd, we're all going to be standing outside watching race cars go around in the circle in northern North Carolina. Should be nice and toasty.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, again, I'm a child when it comes to it being cold. But I'm excited about cars back on the track. I'm excited about Bowman Gray just as a general idea. It's called the Madhouse. And if you have some extra time, if you don't know, just Google Bowman Gray Madhouse on YouTube and watch. There's actually a documentary made about it. It's a 1/4 mile short track. There's no room. You can't pass. There's a lot of beating and banging and pushing people out of the way. So it should be a cool event, and literally and figuratively, because it will probably be cold. But I'm looking forward to it. Just like I said, it's a general rule. If it was being run in July, I'd probably look forward to it a little bit more. But I can't believe we're here. Like the season's here. I just got off I actually jumped off a little early, a Zoom press conference. Today's biggest news is that Junior Motorsports, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s team that he owns in the Xfinity Series, they're going to take Justin Allgaier and they're going to attempt to make the Daytona 500. So, JR Motorsports, everybody keeps asking when they're going to go to the Cup Series. I would guess that this is a little bit of a test balloon to see how it goes. But, the biggest obstacle for them has been getting a charter, because those are super expensive. And I don't think that that's the kind of money that the Junior wants to spend on a charter, but they're going to go as an open team and try to qualify for the 500. So that's super exciting. Probably the other big headliner when it comes to the 500 is a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, Elio Castroneves announced that he's going to attempt the Daytona 500 with Trackhouse Racing. He's already got, because there's a ton of NASCAR rules changes, which we can get into if you want, but one of them is they kind of brought back the old provisional, but instead of a provisional, it's like a promoter's exception for guys that are stars of other series, and you have to have a certain level of achievement in another series. I think being a 4-time Indy 500 champion certainly qualifies for Elio. But so he's got that exception to be in the race. So he doesn't have to qualify. They don't have a charter, but he doesn't have to run as an open team. He is in the race. So those are probably the two biggest announcements, but there's been a ton in the offseason. In the offseason, I always use in air quotes because kind of like the NFL, there never really is an offseason, at least not from a news perspective.
You mentioned Castroneves there. I'm reading a little bit of the back and forth. I think it's Kenny Wallace. It's kind of going at him. Is that exemption for him? It sounds like it's almost a career achievement or world class driver.
Yeah,
you get exempted from that.
Yeah, you have to be a quote world class driver. The thing about Elio is, and I don't know how many casual people know that, but he's driven a lot of races outside of just IndyCar. He drove way back in the day in the old IROC series, which was like the Race of Champions, where they brought in IndyCar drivers, and I think Ron Capps did it representing NHRA and Cup Series guys and Xfinity Series guys, and they ran all spec cars, so they were all the same car basically. And they ran races at like 5 or 6 races a year at different tracks. So Elio ran that for many years. So he's driven on the big track at Daytona before. He understands. He's got 2 or 3 24 Hours at Daytona wins. He's been on teams that have won the 24 Hours at Daytona. He drove in the short-lived SRX series that Tony Stewart had, which was they drove on dirt tracks and all sorts of stuff. And Elio participated in that. So he's got a really robust resume outside of driving in the IndyCar series. And oh, by the way, as I mentioned, he's a 4-time IndyCar champion, Indianapolis 500 champion. So, he's definitely got, if ever this kind of world-class driver exception was made for one guy, he's probably that guy. It might be the Elio rule.
I like that. You caught me when you were talking about IROC and an NHRA driver. I'm thinking going from drag racing to to stock car racing, going from what 12 seconds to an hour and a half. That's a little bit of a paradigm shift, I would think, for someone like that.
Yeah, but much like Elio, Ron Capps is actually a pretty good, like he drove circle cars before he drove straight line cars. So he's definitely got the skill set and he was actually pretty good at it. I think Ron ran a couple of those SRX races for Tony Stewart as well. Him and you know who else is also really good, really well accomplished stock car racer or circle car racer, because it's not all stock cars. That is actually the reigning world champion in NHR right now is Antron Brown. He actually thought about driving in NASCAR before he found much success in NHRA.
That's wild to me. Of course, I'm a novice at all of this, but it just seems like everything that would go with driving circle cars as opposed to, like you said, straight line, particularly the time involved would, the stamina that to drive, 300, 400, 500 miles would just be really a test, it would feel like.
Well, except for the amount of stress that going 380 miles an hour, or what ridiculous amount in the length of a drag strip all puts on your body, just the G forces. Those guys are all in really good shape anyway. I think it's all about, obviously the Force family, they always were going to go straight line racing, right? Because John Force is one of the greatest NHRA drivers ever. For a lot of these other guys, they're just they love to race, whether it's straight, it's in a circle, they're chasing speed. And however they can get to the highest level of the sport, whether it's NHRA, NASCAR, dirt cars, however they can get there, that's what they want. They just want to do this at the highest level and be the best at what they do. So that's why a lot of them have had success, dipped their toe in different types of racing. To have success in all of them, like Kyle Larson has, like Elio has, on some level, like Tony Stewart has had, that's really difficult.
Heather, I wanted to ask you too, good, bad, or indifferent that it seems like the season 2 of the NASCAR Full Speed is coming to Netflix, which seems good, but it's also delayed, it looks like, until April. What sort of chatter can you give us on that?
Well, I believe that's because of the pending litigation against NASCAR. I do know that this year, the teams that were involved in that and the one owner that was involved in that, who were highly featured in season 1, were excluded from season 2. Like, I thought it would have been great if Tyler Reddick would have won the championship, because then they would have had to deal with the fact that they weren't going to try to give them any exposure on this platform. And then boom, oh, he's our champion. What do we do now? But, the race gods thought it would be nice to give the championship to Joey Logano. So here we are. But, I love chaos just as a general rule. But I think that's why it was delayed, because they really want that all settled. They don't want the cloud of that over this show. So, but I do think it's bad, right? Because I think when they released it in February last year, I think it gave exposure of the sport to non-racing fans who could then just jump right in and see what it was about and watch the biggest race of the year, the Daytona 500. While, like, I love the Bristol race, which is in April, and the night race is considered by a lot of people as one of the crown jewels. Jumping right into Bristol is not the same as jumping right into Daytona as far as hooking fans. So, I think that there's some real disadvantages to that, but kind of is what it is this year.
Yeah, it seems like it. And to that point, when I first kind of started watching F1, that was mainly because you watch the new season of Drive to Survive, and then you're like, oh, boom, here's the season is
here
kicking
comes
off.
The season, right?
It feels like, that's a perfect time to release. But that does make sense what you said about litigation. A lot of tedious edits probably have to be made at this point for those guys.
Yeah, and I think they just want it to all be settled. I don't think they want to have to deal with that storyline. If it's not settled, they may have to. This way, they just don't even have to, because they're hoping it will be settled by then. I think all parties are. So I'm not saying I believe that it will be, but I think that's a big reason why.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, as we kind of catch up on off-season activity and get ready for NASCAR 2025. Heather, you mentioned the Clash at Bowman Gray. Is that taking the place of the Clash at the Coliseum? Is that not happening this year?
It's the same race. They just changed locations. I mean, for years and years and years, they ran that race at Daytona before the 500. It used to be for Daytona, you were down there for 2 weeks because they would run the Clash the Saturday before, and then everybody would just stay down there and they do qualifying and practice kind of all through the week, and then culminate with that next week, and then culminate in the Daytona 500. When the Super Bowl got moved back a week, they did not want the Clash to go up against the Super Bowl. Crazy, I know. So they moved it the week before the Super Bowl in that off week for the NFL. They're less scared about going up against the Pro Bowl games. I know, again, crazy, right? So they run it that Saturday before the Super Bowl in the bye between the championships and the Super Bowl. And that when they did that, that's when they decided to break it away from Daytona and start bouncing it around. Last few years it's been in LA. I think 3 years it's been in LA. Now they're going to move it over to Bowman Gray. And I think they will kind of, it may stay at Bowman Gray for a few years, but I think they like the idea, at least in concept, of kind of going to different tracks in different parts of the country with that.
Okay. All right. You touched on it briefly and lightly. Any movement, any news with regards to the charter situation?
Oh yeah. It's been fast and furious here. Basically, where we stand now is NASCAR. So the two parties, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, asked a judge to allow them basically to put a stay on NASCAR not giving those teams charter status for this year. They haven't signed the agreement, but they believe that while they're waiting, that they should be treated as charter teams. Charter teams have guaranteed starting spots in all the races. They make more money than open teams do, a bigger percentage of the pot. You know, if you're an open team and you finish 15th, you could make less money than a charter team that finishes 25th. That's just the way it is, because they want charter teams. They want teams that are going to come to the track every week. So it went back and forth. I think it was end of last week, a judge sided with 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, and they will have quote unquote charter status while this is making its way through the court system, which was huge for them because 2311, they apparently both of their drivers and one of their major sponsors, which I believe the rumor is it was Monster. I don't know for sure which sponsor, but at least one of their sponsors, it may have been McDonald's was the other rumor, have said that if they're not a charter team, that they were out, because they have clauses that say if you're not a charter, because it's less money for them. There's less percentage of the pot. So they were at jeopardy, specifically 2311, of losing Bubba and Tyler Reddick if they were not chartered teams. So they appealed to the judge and said, look, the season starts in a few weeks. If we're going to lose our drivers, we need to know, and obviously it's going to be detrimental to us if we lose our drivers. And the judge agreed with 2311 and Front Row Motorsports. So that's the biggest development that has happened, is that they gave them this temporary injunction or this stay, allowing them to keep that quote unquote charter status through the season, allowing them to keep their drivers.
Heather, I'm curious. Also, spending time with friends and family during the off season is probably the utmost importance for these guys. But what other off season moves, whether it's strategy or what is kind of give us the driver's kind of side of the off season outside of spending time with loved ones, which they don't get to do a lot.
Yeah, especially as short as the off season is, right? The season ended in the middle of November. The banquet was the next week. And here we are, we're getting ready to go race here the first week of February. So 2 weeks or 2 months rather. Most drivers and most teams will take the month of December off and then come back in January and start working on the new season. Now, obviously, mechanics and the crew chiefs and things are still going to work, still working on the car, still preparing, getting ready for the season. But even they will take probably 2 or 3 weeks off around Christmas and the New Year. Then they jump right in. Like they've got production days, they've got sim testing. I did a Zoom call today with Eric Jones, who won the Clash down when it was in Daytona, and just talking about stuff. And they have no notebook for Bowman Gray because they've never raced there. The Cup Series has, so they're doing a ton of sim time trying to figure out how to set up their cars. Because the other thing that's really different about this race is that they're going to actually not going to drive because it's so close to Charlotte. They're not dragging the inspection stations down to Bowman Gray. They're going to inspect them in Charlotte. They're going to ship them to Bowman Gray. And then afterwards, they're going to ship them back to Charlotte to inspect them. So, they have to have a lot of their setup and a lot of their work, the big changes that they can make done before they get to the track. So, it's just a little bit of a different experience for them in that regard. So they're busy trying to get ready for that race. And oh, by the way, 2 weeks later is the biggest race in definitely in NASCAR, depending on your perspective. Maybe mine's probably the second biggest race in motorsports, deference to the Indy 500. But so they're busy. They're super busy right now.
In a short amount of time, like you just said, too.
Yeah, and the off season just gets shorter and shorter. It just gets shorter and shorter, it feels like. And this year's regular season was longer than it normally is because they had to take the 2-week break in the middle for the Olympics that they don't normally take. But even still, okay, so you go from having 2 months off to 2 months and 2 weeks. It's still a very, very short off season.
Kind of saying that too. I asked this because our buddy from Pulaski, Justin White, get off this trailer guy from last season. But
yeah.
How quickly are all the crews in terms of pit guys? Are those set in? How quickly are those set in stone? And are there any still openings at that point? Or at this point?
Except for as far as full-time jobs, those are pretty much set when the season ends. Like they're going through those negotiations and stuff as the season ends. And the teams, like, just for instance, like all the guys that were a lot of the guys that were on the 4 team for Kevin Harvick went with Spire Motorsports and with the crew chief, Rodney Childers. Their last day was the last day at the track at Phoenix. They flew back and they probably started the next week or two at Spire. I mean, those are pretty much determined. There are still openings, like we just mentioned, for some of these open teams or these part-time teams or these new teams that are coming up, like JR Motorsports running the 500. Those kind of openings there's probably still openings for Xfinity cars and Truck Series cars, because when new teams pop up and new openings pop up, that's where they get a lot of their guys from, or from if those teams aren't using Cup Series pit crews, which unless you're affiliated with one of the big teams, they aren't anymore because the big teams don't like to loan their guys out to the lower series. So there probably are still some openings in those teams, but they're pretty much wrapped up when the season ends. Once job ends and 3 days later, your new one begins.
Right back to work. I was visualizing, just somebody somewhere out there in their garage tinkering around, and then all of a sudden, hey, get the call, get ready. We need.
Now, I talked to a guy. I talked to a guy that's from here, who is a gas man for. He works for Trackhouse, but he pits the cars for Colleague, because the big teams all have like 8 crews, and then they will lease them out to the smaller teams. A lot of the smaller teams don't have their own pit crews. They lease them from big ones. So he works for Trackhouse, but he pits a Colleague car. He tried out a tryout for, I don't know if it was Hendricks or whatever, but he got a call. I guess an opening happened. Someone got hurt, whatever, 3 days before they left for the Daytona 500, because there was an unexpected opening. and that was his introduction into the Cup Series. So, I mean, it happens like that, but that's not normal. Usually they're all set when the season ends.
No pressure, huh?
Yeah.
Right, I know.
Yeah, okay. Heather Williams, our NASCAR expert from WCYB TV up in Johnson City, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And we have to ask, Heather, what are you thinking with regards to this Saturday's matchup between your Chiefs and the AFC South champion Houston Texans?
I mean, did you watch the last time we played them? It was pretty much all Chiefs. That was maybe our best game of the year so far, was against the Texans. They could have been one touchdown worse, but the time was running out, and they just wanted to run out the clock. And Kareem Hunt was wide open and took a knee at like the 2 so that they could just have 2 kneel downs and run out the clock rather than give them the ball back. But, I mean, I feel pretty good about this week. I think from a Chiefs perspective, it worked out about the way we want it to, right? Because the best scenario for us, I know people are like, oh, you're scared of the Ravens, you're scared of this, you're scared of that. The Chiefs, the 2-time defending champs, are scared of everyone. That's the narrative. But honestly, I wanted all the best teams in there, and to me, it was better that the Ravens and the Bills play, because they have to beat the crap out of each other before they come play the Chiefs, right? Assuming the Chiefs win. They could lose. I mean, it's this year's Chiefs. Are you kidding me? I mean, they could lose, they could have 57 injuries in the first half and lose. I mean, we are playing a left guard at left tackle right now. So, I mean, anything's possible. But I like the way that this whole thing has played out for him. I think it's the best possible scenario. The team is finally healthy. Like, literally everyone that's been injured, all 900 people that got injured during the season, everybody is back, at least practicing on some level, except for Rashee Rice. And oh, by the way, he's been showing videos of him up, working out on his knee, running, cutting, all that kind of stuff. And now there's murmurs that if they make the Super Bowl, he might be healthy, which that could be huge. So, I mean, I like where the team is right now. I think there is a good place as they've been all year. And they went 15-2. So
there you go.
Not that I'm biased.
Resident Chiefs fan and NASCAR analyst Heather Williams joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Heather, as always, we appreciate it. Get warm, stay warm, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. By the way, I'm about to go order this T-shirt I just found that said, I love the Chiefs before it was cool to hate the Chiefs.
Respect.
I like it. I like it. We will look forward to seeing that on a coming telecast.
Yeah, it's probably going to take a few weeks to get here. If they get to the Super Bowl, I'll definitely wear it for you guys.
Sounds good. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you, Heather.
Let's take a quick break here on Main Street Sports today. Come back to our final segment, Wild and Wacky Wednesday, as Wade and I bring you the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. Stay tuned.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
It's Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports. Today, we are in our final segment of the day, which means it's time for Wild and Wacky Wednesday, the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. And we are a sports talk show, so let's start with some sports wackiness. A.J. Brown against Green Bay Sunday. 1 catch, 10 yards, 1 Amazon bestseller. Late in the game, Brown was caught. Well, I don't know about caught. Brown was spotted on the Eagle sideline reading a book, flipping through the pages of Inner Excellence by self-help author Jim Murphy. The book rocketed to number 1 on Amazon overnight. According to this AP story, I was not expecting that. A real gift, said Murphy. I just looked at Amazon last night and it got to number 1, so that was a surprise. It had probably never been higher than 8,000 or 9,000, in the thousands somewhere. That was an optimistic guess, apparently, on Murphy's part. The book had previously been ranked number 523,497. It went from there again to number 1. Murphy is an ex-outfielder in the Chicago Cubs organization. Again, he's a self-help author, and said that when AJ was seen reading the book on a bench on the sideline, said his phone started blowing up with texts. I spent five years full-time writing and researching the answer to that question, how to teach baseball players to have confidence under pressure. And Brown said he often reads on the sidelines, but added, y'all caught me that time. If I score a touchdown or drop a pass, it's something how I refocus. I always revert back to the beginning of the book. It states, if you can just have a clear mind and remember that nothing else matters, clear conscience, nothing else matters, negative or positive, you're willing to take risks. It also says, if you're humble, you can't be embarrassed. And it's worth mentioning that Murphy is a former minor league outfielder, and AJ was a dual sport guy coming out of high school and had some opportunities to play college baseball coming out of the Mississippi high school ranks before pursuing things on the football side. But certainly an intriguing moment when AJ was seen on the sideline during that 22-10 win. It was thought to be maybe a little disrespectful, and maybe it was, but again, I think AJ Brown has a fan in Jim Murphy at this point.
No, absolutely. Talk about the power of the NFL. We talk about it all the time, but seeing our guy on the sidelines, that's all it takes for him to skyrocket. Man, I go back and forth on this too, right? You're claiming that you do this often. How have we not ever seen that? There are millions of cameras every single week. There are lip readers. There are body language experts. You telling me nobody has seen him? And our guy Chris Vernon in Memphis pointed this out too. You got to do a little extra too to even have the book out there. That book's not just appearing. So I've been going back and forth on this, but if it helps him, and that's what's getting him going, that's one thing. But if nothing else, like you said, Mr. Murphy is certainly thankful. The power of the NFL has made him a viral sensation.
I will tell you this, that book looks pretty well worn. That wasn't the first time AJ has cracked it. So, kudos to him, whatever it is he's doing. 1,000-yard receiver, 67 catches, not as many as he'd like, obviously, but again, it's working. Wade, I was coming back through Atlanta from an SEC weekend once long ago and went to stop at a Steak and Shake, and they did not have shake mix in the building. And I was reminded of that encounter by this story. Used to be Dunkin' Donuts. Now it's just Dunkin', and it's probably a good thing because at some locations in Nebraska, New Mexico, and other states, there were no donuts at Dunkin' due to a manufacturing error. If I could talk, I'd be dangerous on a sports talk show. Yeah, they had doors up on the locations in Omaha, Lincoln, and Grand Island, Nebraska. Signs on the door informing customers that donuts were unavailable, again, due to a manufacturing error. How do you not have donuts at Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, like you said, good thing they've changed the name, but also if you ain't got the donuts, you better make darn sure the coffee is still there and still rolling, because that's the real hidden gem in that whole operation is their coffee.
You know, you don't have to worry about this at Krispy Kreme. They always got donuts, and oftentimes they're hot. So, yeah. That's wild and wacky. In northern England, if you decide that you want to mug somebody at a laundromat, choose wisely. Because a 42-year-old guy an 84-year-old guy fought off a 42-year-old mugger at the laundromat. It was either me or it was him, and I won, said this 84-year-old guy, Ron Crocker, drying his clothes when a masked thug came up on him trying to grab his wallet. Crocker wasn't having it. So the guy swung his pants that he was folding at this guy. Said, I've had fights and scuffled when I was younger, but when he was coming at me, I thought I couldn't back down. There was no one there to help me. It was either me or him, and I won. The 42-year-old would-be mugger was later caught and arrested for attempted robbery. It's currently in custody. So, the laundromat in South Yorkshire, England, is apparently safe for you to go and do your clothes.
Props to that guy. I love the quote. Hey, it's either me or you, buddy.
Yep.
And it ain't going to be me. And then, hey, you may not have a weapon. You may not have anything to defend yourself with. But guess what? I got some pants.
I never would have thought of pants as a weapon, but hey, whatever works, man.
Desperate times, desperate measures situation. Props to this dude for getting it done.
Good for you, Mr. Crocker. Absolutely. Last week on this same segment, we talked about folks at the Berlin Zoo serving up Christmas trees to their animals there.
Mm-hmm.
In Belgium, the Food Safety Agency has issued a warning to not turn their Christmas trees into food. Apparently, there is some sort of a recipe for picking needles from Christmas trees, briefly immersing them in boiling water, pouring them through a sieve, and drying them on a clean cloth. Once the needles are dry, you can make delicious spruce needle butter for bread or toast. Again, this Food Safety Agency says that Christmas decorations are often treated with pesticides and other potentially dangerous characters. Christmas trees are not meant to end up in the food chain. Could be treated with flame retardant, among other things. So, choose wisely if you're eating Christmas trees.
Maybe that's what John Glennon was up to earlier this week.
He was saving it for that night's dinner or for later on. Yeah,
got a big boiling pot ready to go.
That is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today. Be sure and check us out tomorrow at 2:00 right here. We'll see you then.